If people just didn't leave the military, PTSD wouldn't be half the problem it is. When we think about how this all ties in, you want to tie in sleep, you want to tie this, it's kind of like the perfect storm. We've got so much luxury that we're not relying on each other as systems.
Welcome to Erase PTSD Now, the podcast, erasing the silence. Here we bring trauma out of the shadows and into the conversation. You'll hear real stories, survivors, veterans, clinicians, researchers. Together we'll explore the healing treatment and the science behind the Stellate Ganglion Block. This isn't just another podcast. It's a movement, and one that demystifies trauma, elevates unheard voices, and inspires action.
Today, I'm joined by Dr. Charles Powell, Dr. Charlie, a physician and two-war combat veteran and trauma healing advocate who lived this work both personally and professionally. Dr. Charlie brings a powerful perspective on what trauma really is, how it lives in the body, and what it takes to truly heal. I'm grateful to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So for listeners meeting you for the first time, who is Dr. Charlie and what experience most shaped the path you're on today?
Let me answer that with I'm what's left of the former Dr. Charlie Powell. It's an odd comment, right? Because you can hear that comment and go, this guy's been torn to pieces. There's nothing left of him. But I'd look at it differently. I went through a process a couple years ago of healing from my PTSD that we'll go back and talk about that, I'm sure, at some point. But when I got out the other side, I got to pick and choose the pieces of the old me that I needed to continue for my next journey in life, my next purposes. And then I got to build new ones. So I'm kind of what's left, the old guy, and moving into a new version, which let me tell you, I've done a lot of things that have people going, how did you do that? How did you jump off? How did you do a 11-story free fall? How did you do this? How did you do that? How did you survive situations you were in? And I got to say is nothing was near as scary than at 53 years old, walking away from everything. And I did that in order to redefine myself. Now, I'm getting kind of a little sideways here, but you asked me who I am. I'm a 16-year veteran between the Army and the Navy. I started off with the first Gulf War, ended it around Afghanistan time. I was a combat medic. I used the GI Bill, went to college, got a scholarship to medical school with the Navy, stayed with them. And the military was great to me. I enjoyed it. I often think to myself, why in the world do people stay in for careers when there's other opportunities on the outside? I could have been making triple as a physician than I was in the military. And you stay in because of the culture. You stay in because of the community. And there's a lot about that we'll talk about. But I got out in 2005, moved to Dallas. We had no family or friends here, but it was a good economy, good offer on a job. Wound up buying that clinic in 2007. And 18 years later, I built it to a healthcare system that we sold off to an international company, and I cashed out. 2007 probably is about the time I started realizing the PTSD was really starting to set in. You know, it's like anything. You don't just wake up one day and you have PTSD. I mean, yeah, it can happen rapidly, but mine set in about the first year with the isolation, with the irritability, the stuff that I associate more with stress-induced response. Well, that's a trauma response. We all know that. But it's probably about 2007 that the night terrors started. And I suffered from sleep paralysis since age 7 every so often. But sleep paralysis with a night terror is probably the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I would have them nightly. But anyway, so start 2007, start seeing VA, private docs. Western medicine did the best it could for me at the time. I have no qualms against any treatment that I got in the nearly 2 decades that I was treated for PTSD. I was highly functional. I was an active physician. I was double boarded when I left the military. I became triple boarded once I got out. So I had 3 specialties. I enjoy learning. Learned the business of medicine, built a great system. And all this time I was just working towards a goal. I wanted to make sure that my kids and my family were taken care of someday after I'm gone. And I just wanted to cross that line where they didn't have to join the military to go to school, all that good stuff, right? But as I was working towards that, I was spending my whole days building, creating, leading, growing, scaling. And my nights started to suffer because I'd come home 8, 9 o'clock at night and eating over the stove, tucking my kids in, going to bed. But I never went to bed. I could sleep maybe 1 or 2 hours, and that was about it. And my fourth board I was about to get before I left medicine was going to be in sleep medicine. I was working towards it. And that last 2 hours of sleep is so critical. The whole process of recharging the neurochemicals for your brain for the next day and everything else, that I was slowly running out of gas every day, partially filling my tank, next day, next day, next day. And when I sold the company for an incredible amount of money that I never thought I'd see in 100 lifetimes, I had the American dream. You know, I did. I came from, my dad was a teacher. My mom was a secretary. They couldn't afford to send me to college. And they gave me something much better than money. They gave me values. They gave me direction. They, um, they gave me the most valuable stuff that ever carried me through this.
No, I wanna ask you a question though, because
Yeah.
you actually said you started to talk about your sleep and symptoms and recognizing that your symptoms first, including paralysis. Why don't you talk about the importance of the sleep and those different components that you were
Well,
talking about and recharging? And I think that everybody, even if you know this, you need a reminder because
yeah.
like you're startled awake or you hear noise and it interrupts that sleep pattern just from the
Right.
basics from
Yeah.
people not even suffering PTSD but
Okay.
things that would affect your lifestyle.
I think it's a great topic, and I don't get to talk about it much. So thank you. So when you when you think about sleep, it's not just a light on, light off type of process. It is, and everybody knows this had trouble with it. There's different stages of sleep going into it, but we don't really recharge our batteries at the same at all levels of sleep. Think about the brick for your charger, for your phone, for your computer. You got the small brick, you got the big brick. Well, it's going to charge faster with the bigger brick. And that's the same, very similar to the level of sleep that you get into. So most sleep is designed, or most sleep happens the way it occurs is it could be healthy sleep anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, just depending on how you're built. But typically, when somebody goes to sleep, they will come in and out of lighter stages of sleep. Most of my work originated around, especially some IP I hold in the space of sleep apnea and some technology I developed there. But early stages of sleep are fine. It's the last 2 hours of sleep, though, that are probably the most critical and important to a person's night. Have you ever had to get up early for a flight and you're just like, oh, you're dragging the whole day? I only woke up 30, 45 minutes early, but that last 2 hours of sleep is so critical. Now, sleep apnea was my passion. People wear CPAPs and everything like that to sleep at night if they have sleep apnea. Well, 23% of the US population has sleep apnea. So you got to think about that. And it kind of ties back into what we're talking about with trauma and mental health in general. Of the 23% of the US population that has sleep apnea, only 15% of them have been diagnosed and treated of that 23%. Small fraction. What do you put them on? CPAP. Most unattractive thing you can ever wear to bed at night. That's all I got to say.
Exactly.
And, but at the same time, you do what you got to do. But the definition of compliance with your CPAP is defined as wearing it for 4 hours. When are you going to wear it? You're going to wear it in the first half of your sleep, not the second half of your sleep. So all these people considered compliant on CPAP are more than likely taking it off before the last 2 hours of the night, their most critical sleep. So anyway, that forced me to develop some IP in the space that right before COVID I developed and came out with. But sleep is quintessential when it comes to helping your body and your brain not just rest and recover for the muscles and everything else that are there, but your brain recharges, especially in stage 4 sleep. You get down to that deep delta sleep where your serotonin, norepinephrine, your dopamine starts to recharge and rebuild for the day. That's your gas tank. Wake up with a half full tank of gas, you're going to run out.
Right.
And you're going to find creative ways to get through the day with Red Bull and Monster and I don't know, coffee, anything else to get through it. But I'll bring this up and let me tie it back into the importance of why it comes into a whole thing about trauma and everything else. Did you know that the US and most Western worlds, not just the US, they have 7 to 8 times the amount of mental health issues than third world countries?
Right.
Why is that? I mean, all this technology, it's exactly what's causing it. I'm not talking about EM radiation, anything like that. I'm talking about life has gotten so easy with modernization and luxuries that we don't have to leave our house anymore, do we? Yeah, I'm working from mine right now. And I'm not throwing in a glass house, but things have gotten so easy for us that our community has changed. It's elusive, right? It's gotten to the point where people don't have to talk to each other.
Right. And such a key. That connectivity is such a key to longevity.
I will tell you right now, I know people are focused on the economy, focused on relationships in Venezuela, all the stuff going on. What's going on in the background that people can't see or aren't paying attention to is mental health. You just don't talk about it. So, oh, no, that's something we don't speak about. We don't talk about our problems. We get labeled. We get everything else, the stigma behind it. The two things that, in my opinion, that have happened in the last 5 years, they're potentially the biggest detriment to our current way of doing things in our lifestyle. It's loss of community, loss of purpose. Let me quantify that real quick. As I studied veterans, as I went through my own healing a few years ago, and I really looked to see, why is this such a problem? Well, we had a long period of battlefield stuff. Nope. When veterans leave the military, you go through what I call the final trauma, which is leaving a community that's tight knit. It's not just about the medical coverage, access to care, and everything else. You leave a community of brothers and sisters that you just don't find on the outside. Camaraderie, people working for an economy outside of a paycheck, all that. So I started noticing and tracking those, and loss of purpose is a big one for veterans as well. They're doing different jobs. They don't know what they're doing. They've always been told what to do. Part of our training in the military is to break us down as individuals and put us together as a team. You only succeed that way. A lot of times they don't put you back in the mindset of think like an individual and here's what you need to do. But if you look at that and you see that and you believe that, you've got to see it's happening in society as well. Veterans are just the canaries in the mine. It's been happening to us for decades, but now you're seeing COVID. Now you're seeing people driven into their homes, not going out and about. You see, God bless them, Grubhub and Uber Eats, they feed me, but people aren't going to restaurants as much anymore, to the movies. And no one hardly knows their neighbors anymore. These were all systems of support. An admiral at a conference I was at about a year and a half ago said, if people just didn't leave the military, PTSD wouldn't be half the problem it is.
Say that again.
If people just didn't leave the military, PTSD wouldn't be half the problem it is. I found that profound. And I found a lot of truth in that. So coming back to it all, when we think about how this all ties in, you want to tie in sleep, you want to tie this, it's kind of like the perfect storm. We've got so much luxury that we're not relying on each other as a system. So our main system of support is disintegrating. Hell, family dinners are going away.
Right.
I was guilty too. I work till late and I come home, the kids ate in front of the couch or in their room. And it was family dinner that got me some of the best training in my life. I listened to my mom's day, how she handled stuff, my dad's day. Yeah, they were bitching and yapping a little bit, but I would listen. And those things burned into my brain of how they handled life situations. My mom taught me the most amazing sound to a person's ears is their own name. It's a Dale Carnegie classic, right? From 1940s in that book, Win Friends and Influence People. My kids didn't get any of that. They got me now. But if the family unit is the start of a lot of this,
Correct.
feeding up to community, up to society, all of that is really unraveling. Did you know that 25% of Americans eat every meal alone?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I have not validated this number, but it's come at me a couple different ways, so just putting my disclaimer on it. 1 in 8 men aged 25 to 35 don't even have a single friend. 1 in 4 can't identify which one would even be their best friend because they're not that close. I look at all this and I think to myself, yeah, we got a bunch of problems, but can you imagine, Colleen? I don't know how you grew up, but I would guess from your personality and everything, you have friends, you have good people, you have your diehards, right? I think to myself, how would have I survived some of this if I didn't have them to pick up that phone and go, dude, I'm struggling.
Right. And the fact that you did it. Some people
Right.
can't bring themselves to do it, even if they had that person.
I've got a great story. So, we have a movie that's coming out March 25th, Healing Heroes, No Mind Left Behind. That well, after I went through my healing, and we'll get to that at some point, I wanted to pay back. I worked in a system for 26 years, triple boarded, built a healthcare system, and I didn't know about some of these treatments. Didn't make sense to me. So we did a movie specifically around plant-based medicine, but not about it, but more about the stages of healing. And we told 6 stories of 6 individuals that I came across my path, and I said, I'm going to pay for your treatment. I got everything covered. I just want to document. And so, how this all started back in August of 23, after selling everything, I had the American dream. Mine was a nightmare. I was the unhappiest I'd been in my life. I had the cars, the money, the homes. It was just, wait a minute. I was told this is where I needed to get to. Why am I actually contemplating suicide?
When did you stop and realize that though?
Yeah.
How did that hit you that you realized it? Because you're clearly going through the motions and just on, I guess, autopilot at that time. And then you must have slammed into a wall or something.
I was I was on autopilot of hitting that target. Like, I'm running this marathon, I'm going to finish it. And because we're told you get across that line, the American dream, you've got the success. If you got the resources, you've got everything you want. I crossed that line with a bunch of zeros behind it, and I was miserable because I was also burnt out, right? It was at the end of COVID. I actually got COVID
Mhm.
at the end of COVID after working in clinics all the 3 years it was there. And I got a case of COVID. I just sold the company, 9 months of diligence, inside and out, 7 days a week. And June was typically my worst time for my PTSD for a multitude of reasons. And it was all at the same time. I came to the decision, I was like, I I can't live this way. Everybody's safe though. It was interesting. Look, I am not typical. There's not many 55-year-old men. There were former executives in America who built companies worth hundreds of millions that were also triple boarded physician. There were also veterans. I've lived multiple lifetimes in my lifetime, but I'm also weird in other ways. What I mean is I choose not to be common. Not many of us have half our body covered in artwork that, it's just me. It's who I am. But of all people, Coleen, it was my tattoo artist. I mean, 300 hours in a chair of dealing with conversation about anything to get your mind off that discomfort. He knew a lot about me, probably more than any single person in the world. Yeah. And he finally said one day, he was like, hey, man, thought about plant based medicine? I went, like weed? He goes, no, 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 no. Psychedelic medicine. I said, 2 words don't belong in the same book, let alone together. Come on. He goes, no, look, man, I know you respect that I'm pretty well read. And I said, yeah, dude, you highly intelligent. He was just like, check it out. So what happened from there, I started looking into Ibogaine and ayahuasca. And I said, well, first of all, let me just see if I can crack the foundational bit. And I said, holy shit, there's no literature in the US. What the hell? Okay, cool. Went outside the US, started finding it. Like, that's interesting. But your ego and your mindset is, if it was good, Western medicine have it. America would have it. Or I would have learned about it at some point in 26, 30 years of being in medicine. Lo and behold, I ran across some really great studies about Ibogaine, specifically as it related to traumatic brain injury, which I had suffered several, and opiates. And I had been on hydrocodone for 15 years as one of my cocktail medicines for my injury I got in early part of my career in the military. And I hated being on 5 different medications. So I'm looking at that going, I was at the low point. I was like, I didn't care. I read enough. 1 in 400 death rate if administered not in a medical facility. 1 in 400 death rate. I'll just restate that again. These medicines are not one size fits all, and they do carry dangers. And the medical safety of a medical facility, though, much lower. So I went in August of 23. I prepared for 4 months for this. I read, I studied, I understood all the process I might go through. And I'll shorten the story by simply saying that I did a 10-hour experience with Ibogaine that I was so ready for. And I went in going, if I don't come out the other side, I'm cool with that. But if I do, I'm going to be fixed, damn it. I relived in almost 4K reality so many experiences in my life that I didn't even identify as being a trauma, more like a lesson I didn't learn, but came out the other side at peace. It's the best decision I ever made in my life. And so as I sat there floating in the pool at that place, learning Qigong, learning Watsu, learning cold plunging, meditation, stuff I never got trained with in Western medicine. Again, that's just some frou-frou stuff. We don't do that, right? That's all the stuff I needed to regulate my nervous system that was in constant fight or flight response. So then I started thinking, what else is out there? Like the ganglion block. That's where was that in my option list? I was in dismay. I would say anger. I don't get angry anymore. That's gone. I got to pretend to be angry during some of my meetings now just to get people's attention. But then I laugh and go, I'm not really good at this anymore. But I was in dismay. You wonder if something like Ibogaine that I did has been known about for well over a decade for its efficacy in both opiate addiction and in trauma. Why is it not here? Well, it's not. I'll just burst everybody's bubble. Has nothing to do with the counterculture move in the 60s and the stigma behind it. Maybe a small bit. I'll let everybody else come to their own conclusion as to why it's not. But I will tell you that I wanted to produce something that was at least awareness. And one night after I went through my treatment, I'm sitting there wishing I would have documented it. I'm wishing that, man, I wish I would have had a camera through that. Like, everybody's coming up to me, Coleen, and saying, you're smiling. Like, even your eyes are smiling. That's a real smile. When you have your wife tell you, you're the man I met 27 years ago. When your kids can just tell the difference. It causes you to have a little bit of regret sometimes, but you can't have regret. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. But it makes you want to do things different going forward and make sure it doesn't happen again. And then you want to make sure other people know about other options like you guys are doing. That's
right.
Phenomenal. But why is it so hard? Why does it feel like we're pushing something uphill when we try to get some of these things out there? Again, I have my own opinions on that. But I was just about 3 a.m. I'd been home for about a month. And I get on Facebook. I haven't turned on social media, even my email. I went back to one meeting at the large international company. I went to one board meeting that I sat at the table for 40 minutes and I got up and walked out. I never went back. I turned my phone off. 2 months later, still trying to find me. Are you coming back? But no, 3 a.m, I got used the bathroom and I turned my phone on. I'd not been on social media in months. Let's look at Facebook. And on that was this guy. His name is Ryan. He's in the movie. He's one of the participants. His father was one of my patients. And he says, he's on FaceTime Live. And I'd followed him since he'd been out of the war. He had a roadside blow up that gave him a head injury. He was in Walter Reed for a bit. I saw every evidence of PTSD in him of covering it up. Everything's great. I'm doing good. I'm working with dad now. And he's on this FaceTime Live. I'm viewer 1 of 1. And he says, I just pulled the gun out of my mouth again. And I don't know what to do. I am on here because I'm asking for help. I don't know who to go to. I haven't talked to my family about this, but they know there's something off. I don't want to put that gun back in my mouth. And I figured if I did this, maybe somebody would see it and help. Called him the next morning. He goes, you trying to get my dad? I said, no, I'm trying to find you. And I agreed. I said, look, I told him what I did. He was like, man, that sounds like exactly what I need. And he goes, I can't afford that. And I said, I'm paying for it. And no concern outside of that. I wanted to pay it forward. He's a good guy. About a few days to a week later, though, I called him. I said, Brian, just would you let me document this? I feel like if we put this on YouTube or gave it to the treatment centers and they saw somebody go through it and the amazing transformation that I've seen happen again and again. He goes, hell no. He goes, I want my kids knowing what I did and what I've been through. I'm like, that's cool. I got it, man. Calls me back the next day. He goes, hey, doc, will it help people? Right. And that's like when you're with the patients with the ganglion block, it's like, get them to talk, because once they finally hear How does that do that? Doesn't matter. Okay. You can understand that later. Listen to the before and after.
It almost doesn't seem believable though, even when
Right.
you see it. It's like
Right.
seems too good to be true. We see that
Thank
with
you.
our testimonials for the STB treatment. It's like, I don't believe them. They're filming that. It's just too good to be true.
Right. So that's why it was important for me to come up with this independent. And I want to do stuff like on what y'all are doing and what other people are doing because why isn't that out there? But I had to be careful with what I was doing in my approach. I wanted to do this, well, it was originally to be a series. Now it's a documentary. And by the way, this is the first time I get to say it. I literally just signed the deal today. This movie is going to be on Amazon. It's going to be on Apple. It's going to be on Tubi. It's going to be on multiple streaming networks. That's because I just wanted to have impact. I want as many people to be able to see it as they can. And, touch as many as it can. But I had to be careful because you're right. Some people will tie anything like that to what they're used to seeing on TikTok. Oh, here's another thing they're talking about. Oh, well, it's because they're selling it in their store. There you go. It immediately invalidates some of those things. Folks, I'm here to tell you stuff that Coleen talks about. It's real. It works. And I didn't have that treatment, but I've had plenty of people that have had amazing results. We live in a society, in a Western world medicine that thinks we know all the answers. I am proof in point. My people are proof in point. There's so many out there that listen, get your consensus, see what's best for you to go with first. Because let me tell you, their treatment, it's here. It's here in the US, available. Whereas these treatments that I'm talking about, our veterans are having to leave the borders that they went and put their life on the line for to go get it, right?
Mhm.
And I'll be the first to tell you too. And look, I'm extremely honest. I don't own any treatment centers. I've been offered to put them all together. I'm like, no, I didn't want to lessen the message of I'm just doing this for the right reason. I don't care if I make a penny off this stuff. And that carries a louder message. But what I'll tell you is there are so many things that we are just masked to. We assume Western medicine is the best, and it's not. I used to think meditation and ice plunging was just like, that's stupid. I hate the cold. But then you start reading the science behind some of this. Because sometimes, folks, let me tell you, you have a before and after and the intervention in between that gets you there. And you think to yourself, well, if we can't understand that what gets you there and the full mechanism of it, I don't know. Guess what, folks? It's over half the medications we put out there. Even today, people don't know how lithium works for bipolar disorder and so many other things. They have no clue,
Right.
know some things work. So I think a lot of people, Colleen, really get caught up in availability. Why doesn't my other doctors know about this?
This is key because people believe their doctors because they're experts, as they should, but their doctors may not know of other options or mechanisms for that. Even down to you say that, even down to affirmations. Affirmations, I think I always thought had a like, how can that actually
My
help?
God, I can explain it in the brain now. What I can tell you on affirmations, on things like that. I'll use the part of our brain that actually identifies things that we are looking for. My number has always been 23. It's my lucky number per se, right? And I see it all the time. I promise you, I see 1,000 other numbers a day just as frequently, but your brain is honed in on certain things. Your belief system in your brain will sit there and seek out validation. And so when they're that same mindset, if you focus more on positive things about yourself, you're going to start noticing them. You're going to start growing them. You're going to start paying attention to them. Uh, I'm big into the stages of healing because what I went through with Ibogaine, that was maybe 20% of my healing process. Understanding gratitude,
Mhm.
same thing as affirmations, right?
Understanding it, you're right, understanding.
Exactly. Look, you see so many people with PTSD have 1 to 5 events in their past that are tied to a negative emotion, robbing them of their present.
Mhm.
And you look around, you're like, there's so much great stuff around me to be grateful for. But if there is such thing as evil, it is those negative emotions tied to the past, robbing you of your present, diminishing your opportunity, being
And
your
being
best version of yourself.
irritated when people point them out, because until
Yeah,
you're ready for it, you can't take it. Now, I wanna jump back to something though, as we wrap up. You're mentioning your film. Please tell us how and where and when we can find that.
I will. So Healing Heroes, No Mind Left Behind, that was it was going to originally just be hey, I'm going to go build a resort system for special needs families. I have a 21-year-old special needs son. That's where I'm going next. But I feel like I need to leave something behind in the PTSD and mental health space. So it started off as a series that we were just going to put on YouTube or something, turned into a big production. And I put a lot of capital into it of a film of 6 of this nation's heroes, not just veterans, police department, fire department, right? That has PTSD that were at their end. I want to give you a disclaimer, folks, real quick. Psychedelic medicine is not one size fits all. It is for a very certain patient that needs it. And I've seen it do harm.
It's important.
I've seen it mess families up. I've seen it mess people up because they aren't with good healers and it wasn't right for them. So I want I'll be honest with you. We got to be honest about that because that might push somebody more to a different treatment. But this movie takes 6 individuals that we put through a program designed specifically for veterans. Again, I don't do treatment centers. I put this together just for this movie and brought in the healers and the systems to do it. And then I did interviews with their families. We knew who they were going into it. So what you'll see the 6 stories of who they were before their treatment. You'll see them go through their treatment, the 10 days of treatment and the medication, but also learning gratitude, forgiveness, loving themselves. We don't teach that anymore. And you see them come out the other side, and that's probably the 10 most rewarding days of my career, period.
That's
Watching
fantastic.
6 people transform. And then guess what? We follow them for a year.
That
You want to see results? We follow them for a year.
Oh, I can't wait. And that's gonna be available in March, you said?
March 25th, Medal of Honor Day. We just inked the paperwork today to be on Amazon, Apple, Tubi. But again, we're still in the early stages of that. But the fact they have the interest in it, look, what was just going to live on YouTube as an instructional, hey, if anybody wants to see this, it's turned into a lot more. And I hope that this stimulates more talk and discussion about what you guys are doing. And there's so much out there that traditional pathways of getting information out just isn't working anymore. So guess what? We're going to leverage others.
Absolutely true. Now, so then let's close with this. The first step to erasing the silence around trauma is
Being open about it, both with yourself and the people that care about you and you care about. The most common thing we see is that people aren't even having the conversation. The person with trauma, the person that's experiencing the problems doesn't want to talk to their spouse even about it. They don't want to mention it back to them because they don't want to bring it up. They're already dealing with enough. Have the conversation.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time and thank you for sharing that information.
Thanks, Coleen. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to Erase PTSD Now, the podcast. If you've been affected by trauma, love someone who has, or want to be a part of real change, this space is for you. New episodes drop every 3rd Wednesday. Follow Erase PTSD Now so you never miss an episode, and join us in the fight to erase PTSD.